right. Again, welcome, and I would like to thank you for joining us today. Let me introduce Mette Petersen, our President and Managing Director, to welcome you all here, and then I'll see you afterwards.
Well, thank you very much, Rita. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time to join us. We just certainly understand everybody is incredibly busy, but we're excited that so many of you have decided to join us. This is the first of our exhibitor briefings focusing on IDS. So with that, we certainly expect that there will be several more to come during the coming months. Again, my name is Mette Petersen. I'm president of Koelnmesse Incorporated. I'm sure you are familiar with us by now. We are the North American subsidiary of the IDS show and Koelnmesse. And with that, we handle the entire North American participation at IDS. It's organizing and managing the USA Pavilion or taking care of those who decide to go on their own. We also assist attendees and media and so on. So everything relating to the IDS show, we are sort of the main source for that. With that, you can see our team here on the screen. So our entire team is really the individuals who are handling the USA Pavilion. I'm sure you are familiar with George Van Brink, our Exhibitor Services Manager, who has worked on our shows and IDS for many years. You typically always see George on site at the show. So in addition to George, Rita, whom you met already, Rita Dommermuth is our Sales and Project Manager for IDS. Last but not least, Franz Balbe has also worked on IDS for many years. I'm sure many of you know him really well. He is our sales manager, one of our sales managers for IDS, as well as the liaison for the Dental Trade Alliance. You may be aware that the Dental Trade Alliance, DTA, endorses and supports the USA Pavilion at IDS. So for the next slide, so in a normal year, our IDS would have taken place already. IDS is usually in March, as I'm sure you're aware, but nothing seems to be normal these days. And with that, IDS got postponed until September. These are the topics that we would like to cover today. We want to give you an overview of IDS. We want to update you on the USA Pavilion, the location. It will be new location this year. Also the various exhibitor services that we offer. We'll be going through some of the safety measures and protocols that are in place currently because of COVID. We'll also be touching a little bit on the Exhibitor Manual. Something which is new this year is IDS Connect, which is the virtual platform for IDS, which is very exciting. A virtual platform that we have already offered at other shows previously in other industries, and that has been really well received. A new virtual platform which is free for exhibitors. And we'll also be covering travel, hotel, freight forwarding questions, as well as going into details about the various safety guidelines that are mandated because of the COVID situation. And then, of course, we'll take some questions towards the end. So with that, let me hand the word back to Rita. It's all yours.
Thank you. Yes, and Mette mentioned that we have, of course, the new dates, which you're aware of. The show will be held 4 days, it will start on September 22nd, go through the 25th of September. And we also have a new hall plan, a fairground plan that we want to share with you if you have not seen that already. Essentially, we have concentrated IDS in 4 major halls, along with all of the floors, of course. So that will be hall 2, 3, and then hall 10 and 11. This is the plan. you recognize those of you who've been there. Certainly some of you who have not been to the show yet may not be familiar with this, but we can certainly also answer your questions about this. So let us know if you're curious about the fairgrounds. The next slide that I want to show you is really an overview of IDS. Many of you have asked about that. I mean, what is the show like this year, and who is going to be there? And we can tell you right now that based on all of the registrations and confirmations that have been received for IDS, we are expecting approximately 800 exhibitors. We currently have confirmed 570. We did not include all of the pavilion exhibitors in this count yet, but we can update you as we go along, of course, with with the new numbers. Our total exhibit space is 30,000 square meters, which is over 300,000 square feet. And it's a respectable scale and scope this year, considering the situation. And I also wanted to let you know that the country pavilions that are expected are the ones you see on the list: Brazil, Bulgaria, China, Hong Kong, Hungary, Italy, Korea, and of course, our pavilion, which is the US, Canada, and Mexico combined. We are expecting to hear from Australia, France. Well, India was on this list. This could be a little bit difficult maybe for this pavilion, but Iran, Israel, and Spain also have reserved space with IDS. So we're hopeful that all of those pavilions will be there. So let's go back to the Fairgrounds Plan. We have moved since halls 4 and 5 are not open this year. We have received a spot in Hall 10, considered to be one of the major exhibit halls at IDS, along with Hall 11. This is where a lot of the market leaders are located. Everyone always wants to go into Hall 10 because of the attractions and the just the general atmosphere of the hall. So we are fortunate to say that we will be there. You see here the arrow pointing to the location within Hall 10. So if you can imagine, the main boulevard, the spine of the show that leads to the piazza, is the access hall or foyer for Hall 10, along with the east entrance that you see on the right-hand lower side. That's one of the main entries into the show. Along, I should mention, we see over on the left, you see the entrance from the south. That's where the train station is located. So that's also very busy entry point. Let's talk next about the pavilion. I wanted to make sure that you can see where it's located in the hall. The smaller sketch kind of shows you in these dark blue spots where the pavilion is actually located within the hall. So we have about a quarter of that hall, and you can see the arrows pointing to the flow of traffic. We may have shared some of this with you, but this is really sort of tells the story. This is where we'll be located. It's the second level of the hall. And then the larger plan is one that you may recognize. This is our current confirmed floor plan. You will be receiving a plan along with your booth confirmation, which is in the process of being sent as you have confirmed the space. And George Van Brank will be sending you the details of this. So we won't go into details right now about where everyone is located, but just to see how we have put the plan together and where it's located is important. Our Pavilion looks generally the same as in previous years, and you'll hear about some of the changes and features that we're introducing this year a little bit later. But to summarize the participation, we have 60 confirmed exhibitors at the moment, and about 10 or so are pending. They have submitted applications. As you know, many of you applied previously and have rolled over your application, or you may have reinstated your application, and we have a number of new companies as well this year. So we're estimating that about 80 in total will be the final number, so that at least that's our goal. As you know, that we have our staff services. We work with you prior to the show, and we work very closely with you, of course, on site. We have interpreters. We have a lounge as usual. We have a snack and beverage service, and at the moment we are in the process of determining whether or not we have meeting rooms and how many we can have. So that decision is pending at the moment. Just for your information, you may be curious who else is in Hall 10. At the bottom of the slide, you see a list based on the two different levels. 10.1, first floor, we're listing really the main exhibitors. Is by far not an exhaustive list. We have really, we're trying to give you a picture of who is there, and this is the question we do hear a lot is who among the main attractions will be at the show, and this is what we can tell you right now about Hall 10. Yes, let's move to the next slide. I think this is a very important topic, and Franz is going to be taking us through some overall safety measures to keep in mind, as we're preparing for the show. Go ahead, Franz.
Thanks, Rita. Yeah, so IDS will make everything safer and more efficient based on mostly cell phone technology. So if you don't have a cell phone, you cannot really exhibit at IDS. Because you need your cell phone to get into the halls. We don't do exhibitor passes physical anymore. They will be downloadable on your phone. The same system is true for attendees. You will also need your phone to upload a tracking app. This way you can keep track of who comes to visit you at the booth. The show also will help attendees with an app to help visitor flow. It's kind of a tracking device. So this way you can see, or the visitor can see which halls are crowded and where they shouldn't go if it's too crowded, and maybe wait till it's less crowded. Otherwise, it's a little bit like what when you're going into the supermarket. You have to wear a face mask. It's a must. We do give out face masks free of charge at the entrance in case you don't have one or attendees don't have one. You will find lots of hand sanitizers throughout the entire show. You will notice that the aisles are wider, which is a safety measure, much wider than in past years to create distance. The booths will be outfitted with barriers and shields. And last not least, Koelnmesse also revamped the air filtration system in the halls, so we have a constant airflow exchange. So those are the main features of what you will be seeing in the halls and as you get in and out of the halls. Back to George.
Good afternoon, everybody. For the pavilion safety measures, we're basically expanding on what the Koelnmesse itself is already doing. The aisles will be wider than they used to be. They're now up to 5 meters wide. As Franz already mentioned, the exhibitor passes will be via an e-ticket shop. And then there's an app for essentially checking in your visitors and also checking them out so that we can track the flow of people throughout the halls. And again, Franz already mentioned face masks were mandatory. For the booth itself, in order to create the distancing necessary for your staff and your visitors, there is essentially a reduction in seating. We take out one chair at least per table, so there would only be 2 chairs for one table. And then there's a plexi shield on the counter that comes standard with the booth. The theory of the social distancing is that there should be 4 square meters of free space for each person in the booth. That equates to, you know, a 12 square meter booth. Essentially, quick math is 3 people. However, you should subtract the furniture. We can mitigate some of that by placing, or you have to then order a screen for the table, and you can sit face to face on this table within the 1.5 meter, and therefore you can still have 3 people in the booth. We'll have a next slide that shows that kind of stuff. Yeah, why don't we just go to the next slide so that we'll be more clear on that one. Here we go. So the schematic here shows 3 people in a 12 square meter booth. The one on the left is a corner, the other one is an inline booth. There's 2 people at the table. Technically, that would be incorrect because there would have to be a screen in between them. And then there's a person at the counter, and there's a screen on the counter that shows then again the mitigation of the 1.5 meter, which you can stand on either side of the screen. You see the 2 chairs at the table, and there's an optional bar stool shown as well. For each booth, and I know every exhibitor will have questions regarding their own space, because obviously not every booth looks like this. Myself and my assistant or my colleague Marissa will be more than happy to help you with, you know, sorting out how to deal with placing the furniture and excuse me, and you know, maintaining that social distancing space for everybody that's in the booth. That's for your staff and the visitors. The main point of the counter being inside the booth, it's placed 1 meter inside the booth. They don't want the counters on the aisle. The aisle needs to be free. When people walk up to your counter, they can't be standing in the aisle. That's why the counters need to be moved inside of your booth. I think that's
Okay.
And then yesterday we posted the exhibitor manual online. You should have gotten an email on that. If you didn't, here's the link again. And obviously this will be sent out to you after the presentation. I think there's only 2 new companies that are attending this meeting. So the majority of you will absolutely be familiar with this. It's now online. All the forms are links. You can just complete the information necessary. The steps for participating just shows you the main things that need to be handled. There's a deadline. And ultimately, I think the most important piece out of this that's not there will be your construction floor plan. We're working on that with our booth builder once the hall is finalized, so we can send that out to you as well. And we can work on your interior, and then we can place your additional orders based on what is still necessary for you to be successful at the show.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is just a quick screenshot of the manual online. It's pretty straightforward. It's a computer screen with a bunch of links. I don't know. There we go. This is the steps through exhibit. Here are essentially the major points of going through the manual, where the final booth payment is due on May 22nd. I think somewhere else it says May 25th, but essentially the end of last week of May. We need to receive your full booth payment. Then for raw space exhibitors, the companies that are building their own booth, your plans will need to be sent to us by June 16th. The key here is obviously that we need to figure out your setup and for technical reasons to make sure that it is a safe setup and that we also have the social distancing in place. For the catalog advertising, thankfully IDS is somewhat simpler than some of our other shows. Essentially, you will receive a proof from the printer that is based on the information we receive from your contract, and we can make changes after that and then resubmit it. Shipping information, we have recommended freight forwarders. You basically deal with them direct. The service manual forms, there are a few mandatory forms, there are a lot of optional forms. We highlight here the manual, the mandatory with the deadlines. If you plan to do booth graphics, the deadlines are given here. All additional orders are due by the end of July, at least for the early rate. There's always chance to add things later on, but prices do go up after that. And then additional preparation for hotel, flight, and how else you want to get there. Okay. And then the last note on the bottom is added for, the entrance passes. Remember that we do not have physical entrance passes this year. So we're gonna have to manage that in a different way. And then especially for the ones companies that still do need additional passes, me and Marissa will be able to assist you when that information is also known to us at this point. Okay. And then it's back to Frans.
Thanks, George. So, you know that IDS has a big show book with everybody listed there, but in addition, we offer IDS US directory, which is just featuring all the North American companies. Actually, this is the one from last time here, if you can see it, and this is a pretty good booklet which lists all the companies by name and by products, and you can also advertise or highlight your listing in there. So all US exhibitors will be listed with contact and product information in here. This directory is highly popular among international distributors and dealers who are always looking when is this coming out and anticipating this. As I said, you can enhance your presence with a full page, a half page, or a highlighted listing. Starts with 250 for a highlighted listing and goes to 1400 for a full page. It's really a great way to get the word out, to bring buyers to your booth. And it's a very economical way of doing it. So this time we will promote, you see on the screenshot here, you see the left hand is the printed version from last time. And the big thing on the right side, that's the online directory, which we're just building. And this will have the identical, this will have the identical information on all the listings, and you can be searched by product, you can be searched by your company name, and advertisers in the printed book will also get free prominent banner placement in that online version. So we will approach you in the next couple of weeks to capture all the information which goes into that book, and if you still want to book an ad or a highlighted listing, I'm your contact, so I will reach out to everybody so you can do that. Okay, and then the next slide, please. Let's see what Rita has been talking about in the opening. IDS will have a hybrid function. That means it's also going to be online for those who will not be able to make the trip to IDS. They have a way of capturing the information from their home offices. So we call this platform IDS Connect. It's a digital platform. You can start, and it's free of charge for all the exhibitors. So it comes with your participation. You can start building your profile, not only your contact info, but also your product info, and also what kind of buyers you're looking for. And then the system will suggest business contacts based on your interest, and vice versa. It will show the buyers your product lines and kind of connect you this way. You can start an individual calendar, you can bookmark your contacts, you can search the entire visitor database. You can really essentially look at all the all the visitors at IDS. And that's beyond anything you probably have seen from US online shows. And the networking function of the system works a little bit like LinkedIn. You can build a network and you can see who is connected to whom, and then you can video chat or text to those who you're interested with. The platform will feature live sessions. It has a virtual cafe, roundtables, networking areas. So you can be part of all this. You can actually have a prepared video, which can be then shown in the live sessions. It is one of the most highly developed trade show networking sites in the trade show industry. It's really very sophisticated. And you will hear shortly from us how to set up your account and how the features will work. There will be a video which we can send you also, which explains the entire process, how to set it up and how to benefit from it. Okay, then the next slide. If I may, is the, this is just what George and Rita already referred to. We have travel and hotel and freight forwarder recommendations. Actually, TTI Travel, Carol Brodsky should be known to most of you. If not, you should know her. Carol is based in New York and she takes care of hotel bookings in Cologne. She's specialized on hotel bookings for all international shows. And I think she's actually on this call. So if you have any questions later, she might be able to jump in. Carol has scouted all the hotels in Cologne, so she knows how they best connect between the fairground and how to get back and forth from the fairground to the hotel with public transportation, which is free of charge. You should also know there's a United code offered by United Airlines for a discount towards your flight. So if you fly United, you should definitely reach out to that number here or to that link. And shipping, we have 2 shipping agents who have consolidated shipping plans for the US and Canadians to IDS. And this is their contact information. Yeah, this is kind of the end of my part. I'm gonna give it back to Rita for a Q&A session, if you have any.
Great. Yeah, we've covered quite a bit of information, some general information, some specifics, and of course there are a whole lot more details as well, which we can, answer your questions and also which George will provide in individual mailings. Let me just mention that we are recording this briefing and that you will be receiving copies of the recording as well as of the PowerPoint presentation that we included here. And we have actually also some additional resources which I can share with you, but let me go ahead and open this for questions.
Well, Rita, I'm wondering whether we should just show the next few slides, because that may answer some of the questions.
Absolutely, yes. Let me go to a slide that summarizes our cancellation policy. So this goes hand in hand with the aspects of COVID-related, changes this year. We are offering a discount. I'm sorry, not a discount, a cancellation that up to 3 months before the show for free, without a cancellation fee, in essence. And this is show-wide, and that also applies to the pavilion. And we have actually a second phase, and this, of course, you might be wondering about the months right before the show, the 3 months before IDS. And in this case, we have a requirement to present us with some documentation that there is some element of safety guidelines or the worldwide situation or local situation that has changed to make the personal travel more difficult or attendance more difficult. This would include expanded travel restrictions, that might include countries in the no entry zone, and that would also include maybe extended quarantines. We hope that won't happen, but we do want to at least reassure you that in that event, you can approach us with your individual situation. Some of the other resources that we have set up for you as part of this briefing would include all sorts of organizations that provide very helpful information, not necessarily on the disease, but mostly on travel-related information and travel safety information. Let me point out one very, very important aspect. As a trade show exhibitor or visitor, you are exempt from some of the guidelines. You are considered an essential traveler, which allows you to enter Germany with a negative COVID test. This applies mostly for international visitors, those who fly into Cologne, into Germany or Frankfurt or whichever airport, but it's also valid across the rest of Europe. And then they're the usual ones. I won't go into all of them. Let me just point out one slide, for all of you from various parts of North America. We have included the website sites of governmental organizations that have more information also on, leaving and entering your country after you come back. George had put together some examples of what social distancing measures could look like. I personally like this slide very much because it really shows you how you can handle, even in a small area, such as an exhibit booth, your meetings with people, with strangers, people you don't know. Obviously, everybody will be required to wear a mask, but this shield is an extra safety feature if you can't maintain that physical distance. Yeah, here's another example of this. Here you see a screen, and of course, big emphasis on all kinds of hygienic hygienic products that will be used, and sanitizers, that type of thing. And that's pretty much what we have compiled for you at this point. And there will be more information. There's also information along these lines in your exhibitor manual. So be sure to check through all of the forms and guidelines that George has put together. But
let me just jump in here, because there were some questions from some of our attendees regarding some shields and acrylic pieces that seem to be high on the list of the questions. In order to maintain your 1.5 meter or 6 feet of distance, and you want to stand on the same counter with the attendee, obviously, then you're not 6 feet apart. But by putting up a screen in there, you can obviously stand on either side of the counter. Again, the counters that come with the booth package will have those screens on them. If you add additional counters, I would recommend to add those screens as well. And if you want to do meetings with your guests inside the booth at the table, then again, I think it's somebody's going through. If you go all the way down to slide 22, 23, you can see some of these options that are shown.
22. Mm-hmm.
So yes, it's not completely mandatory, but it's highly recommended if you want to, again, meet with these people in a closer proximity than the 6 feet apart. And here you can see the different counters and tables, and they all show plexi screens in various shapes and sizes. These options will be available in the manual. They are available in the manual. They're listed online. And again, for those that have questions, I'm here. So is my colleague Marissa. We're more than happy to assist you with planning your booth layout and assisting you trying to figure out the setup of your space so that you can still maintain social distancing and have a successful show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, let me.
We also received a question, I believe, about whether a negative COVID tests were required for traveling within Europe. I think that was one of the questions.
Yeah, that's the last question we see here.
I would imagine that would be a requirement, but it's something that changes on a regular basis. So I think it's probably a little too early for us to answer that question, but I think it's very likely that would be a requirement. I don't know whether anybody has any additional information.
Well, the latest news we have obviously came from, what was it, last week, earlier this week, when the European Union said that they would allow vaccinated tourists come from the United States to Europe. Although that is not completely in place yet, it's very promising, at least for the summer, and obviously that would extend into the fall. With that, I think a negative test is still possible, because there is obviously a small chance that even vaccinated people could still get COVID. So, but again, these are questions that can only be answered through the government and other official sources, and we can only inform you as we get these new and updated information.
And in addition to that, as Rita mentioned earlier, business travelers to Germany who can prove that they are an exhibitor or visitor at a trade show, they are, as we know, considered essential, and with that, there are certainly no quarantine required. So it's certainly always good to bring proof of your participation in a trade show. That will definitely be important.
See the question from Carolina, I'm sorry. How many hours in advance from travel must you take the COVID test? That's 48 hours prior to showing up at the airport in Germany. So it's 48 hours is the amount of time.
I have a quick question, I guess, for Franz. First of all, I want to thank you all. All of you have done an exceptional job under some very trying circumstances, to say the least. And while we all want to attend the show, there's the possibility that we may not. If we choose not to be there physically, will we still have the ability to participate in the digital platform, the IDS Connect?
No, there's only this IDS Connect is only for physical exhibitors. There's no options for exhibiting digitally only. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really designed to enable the physical exhibitors to still network, communicate, meet with, and present themselves to an international audience made up of some certainly who cannot be there. So that's what boosts your reach.
Okay, thank you. Just to chime in, I mean, I read yesterday or the day before in the New York Times that the European Union will buy vaccines from Pfizer, more than a billion doses, and their estimation for vaccinating 70% of the Europeans is by the end of July. So I think that's a pretty solid number. We expect that Europe will catch up quickly now after they had initially fumbled a little bit around with the vaccination part. But this will go, I think you will see it over the next couple of weeks. The vaccination rates will go up quickly. And by July, end of July, there could be up to 70% over there. I think it's important to know.
Yeah, it's moving along rapidly. In Germany, there is more of a wider spread. There are specific categories that will take, turns. And, they're starting with the age groups and working their way down. And that may seem a bit tedious, but on the other hand, we have observed that it's moving along and that age groups are, quickly being moved through and vaccinated. So as Franz said, we are very, in this respect, we're very optimistic that a majority of people in Germany will be vaccinated. And then across, the rest of Europe, of course.
I think that one question was also whether there will be checking at the trade show whether people are vaccinated or not. That's not the case. They will check that, what we talked about before, the 48-hour testing as you come into the country. But once you're in the country, at the fairgrounds, this is not going to happen with proof of vaccination or not, because they wouldn't be able to handle that.
The hotel might, as far as I know.
Hotels, yeah, hotels is different.
They might.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah, of course,
But, as soon as you go from the airport to the hotel, it's still the same test, so you should be okay.
Yeah. But do check with your hotels, do check with your airlines. There's constantly new information. So we didn't present anything specific on that topic today, but we're also watching very carefully. And right now, it looks like, we can travel. Vaccinations are moving forward. And in general, business will be picking up.
Anybody has any questions on hotels, travel?
Hi, Rita. This is Ralph here from the US. I just have a question. I know that the information you're giving us answers some of the questions, but for example, today, and I'm sure that it will change after hopefully July, but coming back to the US, the airlines will require a COVID test negative. So yes, we have to take it before we leave to board the plane to go to Germany, and that's the one that Germany will require upon arrival. That's no problem. We take the test here in the US. But in order to come back to the US, we need a test 3 days before in order to board the plane to go back into the US. So where in Cologne we will be able to take the test?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I can reassure you that Cologne has plenty of testing centers. We of course have to monitor, a little bit how many of those will be open, how much they're still needed as the vaccinations move forward. But there are at least 2 or 3 major testing centers right in the downtown Cologne that are open for travelers and free. And of course, you find testing at many of the airports. So that's another option, that you'd get tested, for example, at Frankfurt Airport. And
in addition to that, if I may just add, I do believe that Koelnmesse is looking to see if it will be possible to provide a testing center right at the fairgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please, because remember, we arrive, most of us from the US will be arriving on the 19th. We set up on the 21st. And then we need to get tested on the 22nd during the show in order to come back to the US on the 26th. So we 22nd or 23rd. So that's what we need to know. Otherwise, we cannot come back to the US.
Yes, we're very much aware of that. We are actually in the same situation ourselves. We all live here in the States, and you're right. That's a very important question.
Yeah, because otherwise we cannot come back. And the same thing, in Germany, but here in the US, most of the tests, they tell you take the test and they give you an answer between 24 hours and 48 hours. So that means that if I'm planning to leave on the 25th or 26th back to the US, I have to take the test on the 22nd or 23rd in order to get a negative response by the 24th to come back to the US.
Those tests will be immediate tests. You will get the results like in a couple of minutes after taking the test.
Perfect. That will help. And hopefully it won't be required if things will continue to get better. But in case they're not, up to today, I just came back to the US from a trip and I had to take the test before I left the US, and also I had to take the test before I came back to the US. So
Do you have to do that even if you can show proof that you've been double vaccinated?
yes, because what they say, the airlines, is if you're vaccinated, hopefully you don't get sick, but you can carry the virus to somebody else who is not vaccinated. So the airlines, to protect themselves, require them before you board the plane. And as soon as you get to the counter to get your boarding pass and you cannot get it electronically, you need to prove a negative COVID test was taken 48 hours before you board the plane. So that's what you have to do it before. Same thing on the return. So like you say, we don't know what's going to happen by September. Hopefully it's not. But if it will be required, then everybody coming from the United States has to be able to take a test in Cologne on the 22nd or 23rd.
Thank you, Ralph.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks for that. We'll make sure that we have the most current information as we move. Certainly, you know, we have until approximately, well, June 22nd. That's 3 months before IDS starts. And so let's, you know, let's really follow all the news. And of course, you're all travelers, so second nature to check all of that. Yeah. Do you have any questions about, you know, what happens in the pavilion, how things are set up, and how you can move about, and are you curious about your booth and how to handle that? George talked about, you know, the available space within which to move. You know, the guiding principle that we would recommend is that use your judgment, and you know, don't crowd your booth too much. If you're planning on having people come into your booth for conversations, do consider a shield for the table as well. We are including the shield at the counter, but you know, the best policy is to have guests come in on a, you know, one basis. Some of you with larger booths may, you know, have some other ways to handle that, maybe several tables. But like George said, you know, he is available, and to some degree, Franz and I, you know, to make sure you have information so you can plan your daily routine at the show.
And maybe just as a side note, we did actually, our sister companies in Japan and China organized trade shows just last week in different industries than the dental industry, and those events were actually very well attended. They of course followed all the safety guidelines, and it actually worked really well. So we're really gaining a lot of experience in how to run safe and efficient shows.
Mm-hmm. We have several new exhibitors joining the pavilion for the first time, and possibly the show for the first time. I'm just wondering if any of you have questions, since you haven't, you know, experienced the physical environment of a pavilion, and what we do, you know, the support that you receive, and in this case also the extra support, because we do plan to guide you also on site on what to do. If we see excessive crowding anywhere, we will definitely come in and see you and just talk with you about maybe some recommendations, or maybe assisting you in some way, just so that you know that we're always there to help you with that. You know, George, his team, and Meta and I and Franz, we would, you know, all look out for you and have you back on that.
Yes, we will all be on site. So
Assuming we all have a negative COVID test. The one thing that Rita touched up on real quick was the lounge itself. And I do want to assure at least everybody that knows us that yes, we will have services in the lounge. It may look a little different this year, obviously, because we won't be able to, you know, just have open beverages or open food items. It may all just be individually wrapped, but we're not going to make any decision on that until we get closer, because, you know, who knows, the rules probably will change by then. We will have full service staff as usual. Myself, Rita, Franz will be there, Meta of course as well. And then we will hire the local staff that we always have, the people that have worked our pavilion for a long time. There was a question from somebody about the local trams or trains. Yes, they're all working. I'm sure you will have to wear a mask, and but public transportation is running.
I actually checked with the train operators in Cologne directly a couple of weeks ago, and they said they're totally safe in spite of the fact that they're being used quite heavily, and there has nothing being traced to COVID-wise to any train, anything in the train, because people are wearing masks, and that's exactly how they're being protected. So I wouldn't worry about being in a train in Cologne. It is safe as long as you stay, as long as you wear the mask. Okay.
Yeah, I did put up the screen if you wanted to have another look at the pavilion. You see here a typical booth package, you know, with your counter and furnishings, and then the overall unit design to, you know, attract the attention of attendees. Yeah. Well, if there are no other questions, we will wrap up. It's really great to have you here, and thank you, so many of you who could join us today. And as I said, you receive our information, please distribute it to any staff members who are planning and eventually, you know, traveling to IDS. And let me turn it back over to Mette, if you have a few more words to say before we.
Yes, certainly. As I can only echo what Rita said, we're certainly following also the local authorities in the Cologne area in terms of what changes they might make. So we're really on top of everything going on over there, and we really look forward to seeing everybody, but also to check in with all of you again in a couple of months. I would imagine mid-summer we'll have another exhibitor briefing and give you all the latest news at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. With that, thank you so much.